Hey, friends and listeners of the Switch for Good podcast. Yep, that's you. I have some really exciting news. Dotsie and I have started a Switch for Good podcast Facebook group. We created it so we can build a community of fans that will help us improve the show and deliver on the topics that you want to learn more about. So we want to hear what your favorite content is, what you want more of, and what you want less of. And if you like the length of the show, Dotsie and I are always talking about the length of the show, right, Dotsie?
Yes.
We want to tailor our show around the needs and desires of our incredible listeners, almost 500,000 of you. And it's really simple to join. Just go to our Switch for Good Facebook page. That's Switch, the number 4, and then Good. And then click on groups. And there we are, the Switch for Good podcast chat. You can post directly in the group, share ideas, talk to other listeners, and connect with like-minded folks. So go, run, join our Facebook group and tell us what you want. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Switch for Good podcast. I'm Alexandra, and I'm here with Dotsie. Hi, Dotsie.
Hello, good afternoon.
So, Dotsie, I don't know how your watching experience is often, but a lot of times when I feel like I want to just veg out, my first question is, what am I going to watch? And it's so ironic because there's so much out there, and that might be the problem, is that there's so much content. And I grew up in a time when there was a television set and 3 channels, actually, and that was it. And my mother firmly, we were only allowed to watch sort of an hour or less.
I did too.
If we had a TV in the house, because a lot of times we didn't even have a TV. So
no, I think I had 6 channels, but it was like, it's on now. There's no TiVoing, there's no taping, there's no watching later. There's just like, what's on is what's on.
And I don't remember ever saying, oh, what am I going to watch? So anyway, so today I want to just share with listeners some things that I liked, and hopefully if they're want to veg out and they're thinking, what am I going to watch? They might consider these 2 suggestions that I have. The first one.
Sell it.
Okay. The first one is this movie called, I think it's pronounced Capernaum. It's Capernaum. And that's actually an Arabic word whose title means chaos or confusion. And it is a movie, it's a foreign film. It's a movie about the Syrian refugee crisis in Lebanon, and it's filmed through the eyes of a young Syrian boy who's living in a slum in Beirut. And he runs away because he's so angry that his sister's being married off really young to an older man. And he ends up wanting to sue his parents for having brought him into the world and not being able to take care of him because he is so depressed and unhappy and desperate in his life. And he has a passel of siblings. I think there are 6 or 7. I tried to count how many siblings he has. And then his mother gets pregnant in the course of the film. And so it's basically a story about survival on the streets. But it's, as you know, Dotsie, this is why I was drawn to it. It's a commentary on how having children without considering their welfare and what kind of world they're going to grow up in is destructive to everyone, including the society itself. So this movie is great because you see a totally different world than most of our listeners and audience have grown up in. The actors are not professional, but the lead actor, he's a young boy of 12. He's amazing. And he actually was a refugee himself. And this movie took about 6 months to shoot, even though it was on a very low budget. It doesn't seem like it's a low budget, but it took a long time to shoot because they had to work around just so many different realities of the actors and things like that. And it was nominated for an Academy Award, a Golden Globe, both for Best Picture, and it won the jury prize at the Cannes Film Festival. So I recommend it. I saw it on Amazon Prime. And I think you'll come away from it feeling like you learned something, that you were moved, and that you actually didn't spend a wasted 2 hours.
Vegging
out. Which a lot of us do, right? So my other recommendation is different. It's lighter, sort of. It's a television series called The Americans. Did you ever see that?
No, I know about it, but I have never watched an episode.
It's set during the Cold War in the 80s, and it follows the story of these two Soviet KGB officers. And they're posing as an American married couple living in the suburbs of DC. And they have two young children. And I loved it because, well, the actors are wonderful. It deals with their personal life and their spy life and how messy things can get. And you actually find yourself rooting for the spies who are, they do speak perfect English with no accent, which is a little unrealistic. I mean, I guess some people can do that. But they have to juggle all the operations that they do for their country against our country and not blowing their cover as this perfect American family, even for the most of the series, to their kids. So, and they did not start off as a couple. They were put together as a couple. And so there's that too, about how much do they love each other and how committed are they to each other personally.
Like arranged?
Yeah, oh yeah, because the Soviets took this spy who had these talents and this spy and said, you guys are now married and this is your cover. And they did have two kids that were really theirs. So, so I just loved it so much. And it's hard. I'm fussy. It went for 6 seasons. So if you do want to sit down and veg out, you're going to have a lot of veggie out time. And it also is on Amazon Prime Video.
Okay.
And the third thing I just want to, did you have a question?
I do. You have to, I've always wondered, and as you're describing this documentary and this series.
The other one's not a documentary. It's real life. It's a drama.
Okay, the drama and the series. If you must watch all types of shows, with such a critical eye, like so different than my experience might be because of your whole career, being in front of the camera, but really having access to the behind the camera, right? As you're on set and you're watching this beautiful story unfold, whatever it might be. But what are some of the things that maybe just from chatting with your husband, because he doesn't have that same eye? What are some of the things that you notice and pick up and are aware of that I wouldn't be, or maybe our audience wouldn't?
Oh, well, some silly things like when a new season starts, I notice how their hair is different. Like, oh, her hair grew, or
Right. Yeah.
And and of course, when it's shooting night scenes, or really, every time I see something that's shot in the Alps, I think, oh my God, that must have been so uncomfortable for people to be out in the snow in the Arctic for 12 hours, and how they keep warm. So that kind of behind the scenes things. And I do notice camera work in Capernaum, the film I talked about first. The photography is really great. It's a lot of handheld because the streets, the kid is running through the streets and things, and it's just so there's a lot of feeling of the grittiness of that city.
Okay.
It's not polished. Like the Americans is much more polished because it's a television show for one. And it's taking place in sedate Washington area, But if people love movies, and they don't want to spend a lot, because we can spend a lot on the different Hulu and Amazon and Netflix and all sorts of different providers. If you have a library card, and I love libraries, so I do have a library card from the LA library system. If you have a library card from a participating library, you can join Canopy, which is Kanopy at canopy.com for free. And you get to watch amazing movies and documentaries. So just go to canopy.com and put in your library card and see if your library is participating. And you have even more things to watch.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
That's a wonderful tip. I've never heard of Canopy. So check it out.
I've just been using it for the last year. I think during COVID, I think that's when it came out. I think it was a service to folks that the libraries were providing.
Yeah.
So it was great. Anyway, let's get on to our guest today. Let's switch from Netflix and Amazon and Canopy to delicious meat and cheese, stuff like that.
Plant-based, of course.
Yes.
All right. Super exciting. Thanks for those tips. I am watching Capernaum tonight. Today, we are talking food, all about food, but not animal food. Also, not with a chef or a cookbook author. we've got Mitchell Scott in the studio, who's the co-founder and CEO of the Very Good Food Company, formerly known as the Very Good Butchers. This Canadian company has seen tremendous growth within its 5 years of operations. From a farmer's market stall to a multinational distribution, this vegan bean butchery and cheese purveyor cranks out plant-based burgers, sausages, and pretty exceptional dairy-free cheeses using ingredients you could find at the store. It helps that the co-founder is classically trained chef as well, with 10 years of experience. Mitchell is a lifelong vegetarian turned vegan, and we absolutely can't wait to get into the juicy details of running a successful plant-based company. Welcome to the podcast, Mitchell.
Thank you so much for having me. Really excited to be here.
Yeah, so I have, and as has Alexandra, been just diving into your delectable array of plant-based meats. I am especially a huge fan of the Smokin burger.
Oh yes, us too.
I mean, it's I didn't know what to expect, but it was just a culinary surprise and tantalizing to all of my taste buds. My husband loved it. He's very hard to please in the plant-based burger category, like very hard to please, and he was a big fan. The other thing that I thought was so unique and fun was the pepperoni. Mm-hmm. And so at first I was like, do we, it's funny with plant-based meat, it's like, I could just eat it, you could just eat it raw, right? So it's like, but what I decided to do was slice it up and put it on a cheese pizza. And so I just sliced it up raw, put it on the cheese pizza, put it in the oven for whatever the pizza took 10, 11 minutes. And oh my gosh, I haven't felt like I've had pepperoni in many, many years. And sadly, that was my favorite pizza. And so anyway, it was so exciting to have, I'm having a pepperoni pizza. So Alexandra, what were your favorites?
We too made a pizza, Dotsie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, because Ian loves pepperoni pizza too with mushrooms. So that's exactly what we did with Mitchell's pepperoni. And then we also had the smoked burger. We really liked the smoked hamburger. That was delicious. Yeah, and the taco meat too was very good. So that was, and we had sausages. We had the sausages also, of which you have smoked and original, and it was all really good. And it also felt much less fatty than a lot of the other alternative meats that I have tasted. So Mitchell, I don't know if you want to comment on that. One of the things we want to know is, how do your products differ from the other products on the market? How do they differentiate, and how do you sell them?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that pepperoni is my personal favorite as well. Great on pizza, great on like a charcuterie board as well. And then the taco stuffer is another kind of crowd favorite. For us, I think the big focus is on the kind of just the quality of the ingredients and not using any isolates or preservatives. So our meats are made out of beans, veggies, herbs and spices, and then a bit of wheat flour, wheat gluten to bind it all together. So a very clean ingredient deck, great nutritionals, you can pronounce everything on the label. And that's really what our focus is. And then we use the kind of butcher shop kind of motif and aspect to really convey the quality of the products and the range as well. So you guys, you had the burgers, the sausages, the pepperoni. We've also got steaks and ribs, and we have like a full range of products in our butcher shop, which we also sell online across North America. So we recently acquired a plant-based cheese company. So they were we worked very closely with them in the past. We actually helped them get started. We rented them some kitchen space 3 or 4 years ago. And they make the best kind of plant-based cheese I've ever had. It's a cultured cashew-based cheese, really incredible. And they were looking for help and support to kind of grow their business. So we kind of brought them in, and we're rebranding that as the Very Good Cheese Co. and helping them kind of increase production and gain further distribution.
All right. I want to talk about you and your beginning. How did your interest in plant-based foods begin? In the intro, I mentioned that you were a vegetarian when you were younger, so vegetarian for quite some time, although you're still very young. So what was that catalyst that made you curious about going vegetarian eventually vegan?
So I grew up vegetarian. So my parents, from the age of, I guess, 0 or 1 or whatever, I was, our whole household was vegetarian. So for me, it was just kind of normal. It was it was the way that we ate. So as a result, we didn't learn too much about why. Obviously we knew, it's better for the environment and for the animals. I think my parents probably originally switched for health reasons, as was one of their main drivers that kind of brought them to it. And then of course, once you're there, you learn so much more about the other kind of pillars, I guess. So for me, growing up vegetarian, there was not a lot of options. There were some okay veggie burgers. There was, here in Canada, we had Yves, which has been around for 20 or 30 years. I think maybe Light Life over in the States is similar. But I love their their veggie bacon little circles growing up. But for me, I guess I can go into how I got into it, and which is really how the company got started. Basically, so I've been vegetarian, most of my life. I was back home one summer at a family barbecue, and I tried this veggie burger, and I was just blown away. The taste, the texture, it was just incredible. I never had a veggie burger like that. I was like, wow, what is this thing? And it turns out my sister's husband's sister's husband had made this thing. So his name is James. So this is the classically trained French chef from England. And he was just kind of making these things out of his kitchen, selling them at the local farmer's market just over the summer, just to kind of bring in some income. And he just had crafted these with just a mixture. It's called, the technique is called seitan. So it's beans, veggies, herbs and spices, wheat flour to bind it all together. And was just making these really incredible products and just selling them at the local farmer's market on Denman Island, which is a little island on the west coast of Canada with about 1,000 people.
Yeah.
So he was selling these, yes, but does it get a lot of tourists? I'm wondering what the reaction was to, him selling these alternative meats on an island off the west coast of Canada.
Yeah, not a lot of tourists. So there's another island that gets a lot of tourists. A lot of tourists drive through, but this island is kind of a perfect target market. I think a lot of vegetarians and vegans on the island. So I think his first time there, sold out in about half an hour. I think every time he'd spend the week with his wife, making these products, selling out every weekend. He wasn't making it, a lot of them. He was in his kitchen with mixing bowls and very labor intensive. But the reception was great. People loved the products, and they just really enjoyed them.
So Mitchell, after you got involved with James and decided that you were going to make this a company yourselves, you opened the first vegan butcher shop in the Canadian West on Vancouver Island, and on your first day you had 1,000 people show up. Tell us a little bit about that and how that came about.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, James, had moved to this smaller Denman Island, was making stuff at the local farmers market, basically because he wanted, he'd recently turned vegan, watched a few documentaries. He wanted something to feed his young growing family. He wasn't impressed with what was on the market. Everything was very processed, full of ingredients he couldn't pronounce. So here he was at the little farmer's market stall. I tried his amazing burgers. We got to talking. My background was kind of in biz dev, marketing, sales. I'd always wanted to start a business, had never had what I thought was a good idea or a good product. We seemed to get along, and we kind of just decided to go for it. So we did our first event together was a little Christmas market in Victoria, which is kind of the closest big city. So we took a 10-minute ferry off this little island, drove down with 2.5 hours with coolers full of meat, and sold at this little Christmas market with a little table, and had a great response. We had about 100 people show up there. We posted in the local Vegans of Victoria Facebook group beforehand, sold out again. And this is at a big kind of year-round indoor farmers market. There's retail, restaurants, gift shops and stuff around the outside. There's people with their goods on the inside, food and jewelry and all sorts of stuff. So we had this great response. While we were there, the market manager approached us and was like, "You guys are really popular. What do you think of this full-time retail space?" And we kind of just decided to go for it. A few months later, we opened the first vegan butcher shop on the west coast of Canada. That was in February of 2017. And we had about 1,000 people show up. We had to shut down for a week after that just to restock everything. And that's really, I think, when kind of the birth of the company.
Yeah, I love that a couple times there you said just decided to go for it. And I think that is is sometimes what stops people is the nerves or the fears, or allowing the fears in, and not just going for it. And it's a big deal to become partners, right? Because we know that partnerships can certainly go the wrong way or go south. What has been the secret for you two? Because I'm sure you've had multiple disagreements, but of really keeping the ethos of the company first, and the why behind why you guys decided to do this and go into partnership. What have been the secrets to your partnership success?
Yeah, I think we complement each other really nicely. So he's with his chef background, very creative, can make great products, great understanding of food, flavoring. So he's really focused on making the best possible products for our consumers. And then me with some business background and various knowledge around the place, have kind of picked up a lot of the other things. And I think we get along great, and we really balance each other out nicely. Obviously, it's there's been bumps and up and downs and everything, but I think over the years we've been able to maintain a great friendship and a great partnership.
Tell me about a bump and how you guys got through it.
Yeah, there's been a few. I think the hardest thing for us was we kind of bootstrapped the company for the first 3 years or so, 3 or 4 years. So I had some savings which I put into the company. He didn't have really any. So there was just very tough times when we're trying to, like, we have this great product, people love it, but we're trying to grow and scale a food business, capital intensive. I think at one point I had to pawn my wife's wedding ring to make payroll. There's all sorts of things like that. I mean, it ended up working out in the end, but just it's so tough to run any sort of business, let alone a food business where margins are small. It's hard until you get those economies of scale to really make the business work. And if you don't have funding, it can be really tough.
Yeah, you must have a very supportive wife.
I do.
You do now have funding because you went public with a very successful IPO. Were you the second vegan
food
company,
we were the second.
Or vegan meat company to go public? Is that correct?
That is, yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that IPO, what it meant to your company.
So for us, as I mentioned, we bootstrapped most of it. Had to put a bit of money in, and then I was going the fundraising route. I ended up going on Dragon's Den, which is like the Canadian Shark Tank. Had some great offers there, but they never ended up materializing into a solid deal. We then did a front funder campaign, which is like an equity crowdfunding. So we raised $600,000 from our customers, our fans, our supporters. Used that to keep growing. Realized we wanted to grow further. We had big ambitions. So I was kind of on the pitch circuit, you'd call it. I was going to conferences. I was talking to different angels, VCs, etc. And then I was actually doing customer deliveries at the same time. I was doing a customer delivery in Vancouver, and started talking to one of our customers. And he loved our product, and his whole thing was he wanted to invest in companies, but he didn't like investing in private companies. So his pitch was him and some friends put some money in, help us scale up with the goal of taking us public within the next year or so. We looked at kind of the other offers on the table. We had some VC term sheets, weren't super favorable. We were going to likely have to give up control of our company. At the same time, Beyond Meat had gone public a few months earlier. There was a lot of kind of retail interest and demand, but not really a lot of options to invest in a purely plant-based company. And there still aren't that many, right? A lot of the other plant-based meat companies, if they get big enough, they get bought by a real meat company or a large multinational or something like that. So, I mean, once again, we kind of just decided to go for it after a lot of back and forth. Went through the IPO process, the audit, the whole process. I will say it is more common in Canada for smaller companies to go public than it is in the States. So we're ready to go public. COVID hits, the markets tank. We kind of go back to the drawing board, but then we end up going public, a few months later. Start off at 25 cents a share, which I think valued the company at around 10 or 15 million at the time. Shoots up to about 250 within a few days, settles at around $1.75, and valuing the company at 150, 200 million or something like that. We're then able to raise further money. So with our IPO round, we raised 4 million. 6 weeks later, we raised another, I want to say 8 million. And now we're really off to the races. I mean, we've got capital, we can hire really great people. The nice thing about Vancouver, there's a lot of other plant-based companies that have come from there. Dea Foods, Gardein, Vega. So there's a lot of really smart people who know how to grow and scale a plant-based company. So we've been public, just over a year now. We're building out manufacturing, we're expanding into new product categories, we're building a really great team. So for us, it was life-changing. I mean, I don't think we would have been able to raise this kind of money privately at that kind of valuation for sure. So it's really allowed us to remain in control, to remain in the driver's seat, and to kind of grow the company in the way we want to, and to kind of do all these things we've been dreaming and talking about for years, but we were limited by capital.
So if I'm understanding right, one of the main reasons you decided to take the IPO route is because private funding was going to end up having the two of you not at the helm of the company anymore, not having the the lion's share ownership. Was that because so many companies go back and forth between the ups and downs and the pros and cons of staying private, because there's also some challenges now being having ownership with the public. So is that the main reason, and what have been downsides, if any, of the decision that you both made?
So that was a big reason. Another reason is we've done this crowdfunding round. So we already had 250 of our customers and fans invested in the company. So that made it harder to pitch to venture capitalists and to bring money in that way.
Right.
So with a public company, I mean, you don't need that necessarily 50% control because there's so many shareholders. So myself and my co-founder still hold 30% plus of the company. We're very much in the driver's seat. If we went down the other route, we would have had quite a bit less than 50%. And I think for us the risk was all of a sudden whatever this main investor doesn't like the way we're running things, and then they replace us and we can't really do anything about it. I think with a public company, I'd much rather be beholden to a larger number of shareholders who are our customers, our supporters, our fans, believe in what we're doing, than just kind of one or two groups of VCs. Downsides, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's almost like you're running a second company. And in order for the public company to be going well, the original, the main company has to be doing incredibly well as well. So definitely a shift in my role. I've become more of a kind of a storyteller. But at the same time, it's enabled us to hire a really great team to really take this business to a whole nother level.
We talk about what it takes to make it in the marketplace. There's a lot of pushback from the meat companies that you shouldn't call yourself a hamburger or pepperoni and things like that. Is that hurting or helping? Is that good publicity? And where do your products, where should they be in a grocery store? Should they be next to the meats? Tell us how you kind of work with the fact that you're quote unquote an alternative meat.
Yeah, I think it's funny, and you see these stories popping up in Europe and the States, even here in Canada, and their kind of core argument is, consumers are going to be confused. But I think by calling it something else, you're going to confuse them. What are you going to call it? Like a plant-based disc or a puck? Like it's a burger. A burger is not specific to meat. A burger is a shape. It's familiar. To put it in a bun and put some ketchup on it. So I don't think their arguments are great. I mean, look at peanut butter. There's no butter in peanut butter, but we're calling it peanut butter. Everyone knows what it is. They're not confused. So I think language evolves. It changes over time. Obviously, the meat companies are upset because as people buy more plant-based meat, they're selling less meat-based meat or animal-based meat. I think placement in the grocery store is a great question. Actually, here in Canada, in a number of stores, we're kind of testing things. So there's the meat set where all the animal meat is, and then we're in there along with Beyond and Impossible. I think the idea is that, people like flexitarians or whatever will see these options and maybe give it a try, which I think is great, bringing new people to plant-based eating. At the same time, the other normal place you see it is, I call it the tofu set, but your plant-based meat set with usually has your tofu, your kind of core brands, field roast, light life, Yves, etc. And that's where a lot of the vegans and vegetarians know to find the product, and they don't really want to go to the meat section and look at all that dead animals. So I think it's tricky. I think it depends on the store. For us, we'd love to be in both if they'll give us the spots, and that's what we're pushing for. So if we can have the sales to support that, that's currently where it's at. I think longer term, there's going to become, like you see, even some places are starting to do this, a dedicated plant-based meat set. We'd love, like at our butcher shop, we have these big deli cases full of plant-based meat and cheese. I'd love to see that going more mainstream. So a dedicated 6-foot plant-based meat section right in the as part of the butcher shop set. So yeah, I think there's a lot of options. A lot of things are being trialed and tested at different at different grocery stores. But I think it remains to be seen where the best spot for these products lives.
Yeah, still, I had I have a new rescue dog, and we had to get some training for her because she is a mad hunter, like to the nth degree, with squirrels and lizards, and it makes it difficult to walk her. So my dog trainer came over the first time, and we were sitting there talking, and he started to want to talk about food for her, and I was like, that's not going to be the conversation we're going to have today. It's not why you're here. I'm vegan, and I don't want to talk about dead animals. And so he's like, oh, okay, all right, whatever, no problem, respectful. We went on. And then at the very end of the conversation, he said, I just have one question for you on this whole vegan thing. So sure. He said, why does that Beyond Meat company put their burgers in the meat department? He's like, no vegans want to go over to the meat department, to your point, and see dead animals. He's like, I think that's the dumbest thing they ever did. I said, well, I think it might be one of the smartest, because now you know about the product. But I said, just to make you feel better, they're also in our special vegan section at the grocery store. So
at the end of the day, the grocery store is going to put it where it sells. And it sells, actually, like based on like some of the data we've seen, it sells better in the meat section, or it has been over the past year or two, than it does in the plant-based set. At least with some of these products like Beyond and Impossible, who are spending a ton of money on broad consumer awareness. I don't know if the repeat business is there, but everyone's says, oh, I saw this I saw their Super Bowl ad, I'm gonna try a pack, or I've got a vegetarian friend, I'll grab a pack for him. So it is working. They're encouraging more and more people to eat plant-based meat. So I think it's great.
What has your market research told you on your product, on who's buying it more over? Vegans, veggies, or omnivores?
Yeah, I mean, and the nice thing is we have this brick and mortar butcher shop, so we can kind of get almost live feedback and test new stuff out. And at least half of the people buying our product aren't vegans or vegetarians. They're maybe they're trying to reduce their meat intake for health reasons. They're just looking to cut down, and that's very big, well, everywhere, but especially in BC. I think it's got one of the highest rates of kind of millennial adoption of plant-based meat. Something like 70% of them eat plant-based meat, somewhat regularly. So it's a wide range, but it's definitely not just the vegans and vegetarians.
Yeah, that's exciting.
And what are the reasons that you mentioned health several times? Does it seem that most people choose plant-based meats for health, or is it for the environment or animals?
I think from what I've seen, the two big kind of drivers are that bring people in, at least initially. Depends on the demographics, but it's health and the environment. And then kind of as they learn more about it, then all of a sudden, these animals are being treated horribly. Of course, that almost becomes an even more important reason. But from what I'm seeing, health and environment are the ones that kind of bring people to start learning more and start trying more of the products.
Mm-hmm. Are you since you do have this wonderful market research retail store, are people talking about how much healthier your product is than some of the other meats that we've been talking about? I mean, just in terms of fat content, right? There's almost 20 grams of fat in a Beyond Burger, and they're delicious. But when I ate yours, I thought, oh my God, like it's not so fatty. I mean, you can even taste it, and then you can look at the ingredients and know that. But I had just a really similar experience of the eating it, the flavor, but also the texture, which I was blown away by, because there's kind of like their texture and then all the bad veggie burgers that are frozen. And so this was really, really exciting. Are people making comments about the ingredients and like, hey, this is really incredibly delicious and very real, which some people don't want, but many do, but just so much less fat.
Yeah, so I think that's why people, obviously it has to taste good. It has to have a good taste, a good texture first and foremost. But that is, I think, is why people keep coming back and buying our products week after week, is they enjoyed it, and then they also took a closer look, realized it's got great ingredients, it's got great nutritionals. I know this one guy who eats like one VGB burger a day, not necessarily in a bun with everything, but he uses it as his protein source for the day, and maybe it's chopped up in a salad, maybe it's so yeah, that definitely is something that our customers care about, and it's why we continue, even with the new products we're developing, the health and the quality of the ingredients and what's going into it is just super important for us.
Yeah.
To pull out a little in terms of governments, you're based in Canada. I'm curious, with all this talk, especially now, we're seeing the effects of climate change. It's here. The animal agriculture industry is a huge part of it, and if we were to get rid of animal ag, we would really make huge moves towards dealing with the climate crisis. Are there any subsidies that Canada is giving to companies like yours, or promoting? What is the general feeling among the government about companies like yours?
Yeah, they have like a plant protein supercluster of funding they announced a few years back. A lot of that has gone to farmers in the prairies making the kind of raw ingredients, so making the beans and the pulses and the peas that other manufacturing companies are then using. So that's where I've seen most of the money flowing. And then, I mean, for me, I think, and then of course on the animal side, like I think even just today, Biden announced a bunch of subsidies for animal agriculture. I really think that's, kind of going in the wrong direction. Like either, don't subsidize these harmful industries, or in turn subsidize, plant-based industries in the same way, and kind of level the playing field. So for us, yeah, there's some government funding out there. It hasn't been something we've accessed. We've talked to a number of kind of government people over the years who are doing research and stuff, but I haven't seen a really concerted effort to support the industry in a meaningful way, other than helping those ingredient processors. And to be fair, those kind of companies need more capital. Like they're building these giant facilities that are going to produce a ton, and then they're getting the farmers to switch their crops. So there's a lot more infrastructure behind that. So that has been good to see.
Yeah, Dotsie and I have talked a lot about the farmers and the plight of farmers, and I think that's a very important point, is that there's so many farmers that don't get involved with animals that we can subsidize and help. And it's really those huge companies that are involved with these big CAFOs that we shouldn't be subsidizing. And there's so many farmers we can help.
Yeah, and those are the ones, of course, that can pay for the lobbyists and all the other things to steer the money their way.
Right, and just keep whoever's in charge, Biden right now, very ill-informed, because I think that how he's pitched more is we have to feed the people. Like, we're here to feed the people. And once you look so much deeper, you realize, well, first of all, to us, animals and animal foods, animal products aren't food to us, right? So once you shift that mode of awareness and that mode of consciousness to that doesn't have to be our food, let's say, here's what can be our food for a healthy nation, and to release so much pressure on the healthcare system, but also obviously the environment, and look at how much plant food we're growing to feed animals to just be recycled through. I think that's a big shift that has to happen, because I think that he just sees that as, we got to feed the people. Like there's, and the conscious is not being open up to that doesn't have to be the source, though.
Yeah, I agree. It's a much so inefficient in terms of feeding the people. I want to ask you about, we talked about the ingredients that we've talked about the products that you have in your meat lines. But we didn't really go delve into the cheese, and a lot of people are interested in cheese because it's the thing that keeps them on cow's milk, and they often complain that they can't find a good alternative. So tell us, what kind of cheese do you have? Is it shreds or soft cheese or hard cheese? What?
Yeah, so the current lineup is a semi-hard block cheese. So you can, it slices nicely. It's definitely more of a kind of an artisan product, so it's great for kind of sandwiches, charcuterie boards. We have a matzo, which is good on pizza as well. And it's, once again, simple ingredients. So it's a cultured cashew product. We've got, I think, 5 different flavors, kind of a Gouda style, a cheddar, a dillish, so dill and garlic. But very much, yeah, kind of a semi-hard block cheese. We're looking at, other types of cheese and more of the kind of everyday use cheeses like slices and shreds. For us, I mean, a lot of the stuff out there is just kind of, it's just chemicals, or, a mixture. So trying to figure out, how do we make a similar product that functions and behaves similarly, but has, a good ingredient deck. For us, that's, one of the more challenging things. We have just started working on cheese recently in the past, few months. So I think we'll crack it, but not quite yet.
Where can people buy the cheese? I haven't seen it, and I'm in Southern California. When will the US?
Yeah. So, yeah, great question. So when we acquired it, was just being sold in kind of BC, so at 50 stores or so. So we sell it online across North America. In terms of US retail launch, I would hope, we're looking at a wider Canada launch first. I'd hope towards the end of the year it would start showing up. And yeah, likely kind of West Coast to the States is one of the first places in the US we'd be sending it to. So.
Mm-hmm.
Are you trying to really stay on brand in terms of having real ingredients? Because as you get bigger, it gets harder, and as you diversify and broaden your, the things that you sell.
Yeah. So for us, obviously we went public as the Very Good Food Company because we didn't want to just be doing plant-based meats. We saw opportunities in all these other sectors. So the Very Good Food Company is a parent company. Very Good Butchers is still, one of our brands. Very Good Cheese Co. For us, that's, really, really important. I mean, we want to get millions of people to kind of rethink their food choices. And eventually we want to go into someone's, fridge or pantry and take all the animal-based products out and replace them with a healthier, tastier, plant-based version. I think over time, we may start introducing some kind of natural preservatives if we need to extend shelf life. But it's always the first thing we look at when developing a product is, how do we keep it as clean as possible while still being, tasty, healthy, and great. So I don't really see that changing over time. Even if we were to go into the more, let's say, like the more processed food types, like let's say a veggie chicken nugget, for example, we'd still want to make the best, tastiest, healthiest, cleanest, veggie nugget that we can, or on the market.
Excellent.
Did your and James's goals change at all from what you had initially set out in the partnership that you just went for when you took the company public?
Yeah, so I don't think we ever really saw this whole thing playing out, I guess, the way it did. I mean, it was kind of just taking it day by day. Like, oh, this product's great. Let's see where we can take this. Okay, let's open up a butcher shop. What's the next step? What's the next step? Like, we knew we had a good product because, it was in demand. We were sold out. We had a waiting list of retailers. We didn't know how we were going to end up getting there. So the IPO, was part of that. We always had these kind of big dreams and ambitions, but they were kind of, I don't want to say they were pipe dreams, but we didn't see a clear path forward to it. For example, opening up a butcher shop in London, England, would be great. James is from there, great vegan community over there. No idea how we're going to make that happen. Now that we've gone public, we're already putting in those plans in place for the next year or two. So we're really kind of turning into a global brand is the goal. Whereas before, I don't know if we, of course we would have loved to. I just don't know if we saw the actual how or knew how we'd get there and get out of just the kind of very kind of tough day-to-day growing, but still very challenging.
Yeah, I really love the quote and live by the quote. she took the leap and built her wings on the way down. And I feel very connected to that, and very connected to that in hearing your all story, you know, that it wasn't that you sat down together on day one and is like, this is exactly where we're going in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You know, you found something that you're incredibly passionate about and good at, and you guys just kept leaping to what the next possibility was. I think there's so much to be learned from that, because there's a lot of people out there that maybe aren't starting their dream, you know, because of fear, or just worry that they, you know, they won't be able to get to X. But, you know, it's like just getting to B is a big accomplishment, as you know.
Yeah, and I mean, you learn so much, even throughout the journey and the process, like so much, even if it doesn't end up being super successful, all the knowledge and skills you've picked up trying to run a business and learning about, you know, accounting and payroll and HR and marketing and all these other things that, you know, you just, how do I do this? Okay, I'll do a quick Google search and try to figure it out. I think super valuable, even if, you know, you're going to go into a career somewhere else in the future, or work with a startup.
I had somebody that I hired last year, and first couple of weeks, you know, she sent me an email. She's like, who do I talk to about, you know, in HR? And I was like, you just emailed her. You know, I was like, and I've learned so much in just that one category of stuff that you're like, oh, this wasn't really what I thought I signed up for, but you have to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
If folks want to find your product in the United States, we have a lot of listeners in the United States and around the world. What's the best way for them to find
so as of today, the best way is verygoodbutchers.com. We ship across North America. You know, we ship thousands of orders a week, you know, all across the States. We have started our US retail distribution as well as of, I think, last week. Erewhon in California is one of the first places getting product. Over the next month or so, there'll be hundreds of stores receiving product. And I think by towards the end of the year, I think we'll be widely distributed across the US in terms of retail grocery stores. So it'll become more and more available. Internationally, we're working on a UK e-commerce only launch as kind of a first entry into Europe. I'd expect next year product will be more widely available there. So for now, best spots are our website, you know, or if you're in Canada, we're at, you know, most grocery stores in BC, and slowly spreading across the country as well.
Wonderful.
That's I'd love to get some practical cooking tips from you if you first. So all the people that are going to go right to the website and order up, get the pepperoni, people. It's pretty mind blowing. We've certainly all learned from experience that there are a few ways to mess up perfectly good vegan burger. How do you prepare these the most popular items that you guys sell? Any tricks?
Yeah, so we actually, on our website, we have some little cooking instruction videos which show our kind of chef-approved way to cook it. For us, so the big thing for the burgers, what I like to do, just on a pan or even on a grill, and I just use a bit of a basting liquid. So I think it's like 50% oil, 50% barbecue sauce, and I just kind of baste it once on each side. And I find it just really kind of helps keep the moisture and add some extra flavor. That's kind of our recommended way for the burgers and even the dogs. So when we do big events, we'll have a big 5-foot grill and we'll have like 100 burgers and dogs up there and ribs and steak. And yeah, just a little bit of basting liquid really makes it taste, you know, that much better.
That is an awesome tip that I am going to try. I'm pretty sure tonight.
I think that'll work with, you know, with most plant-based burgers, because that's the one thing that, you know, a lot of them don't have, you know, a lot of, you know, fat or anything in them. So they tend to dry out a little bit when you cook them. So that's our solve for that. Instead of putting in a bunch of oil and fat into the burger itself, you can add a little bit if you want with a basting liquid.
Okay. And what's one product in your line that you think is a little bit underrated, but you really think more people should try?
Yeah, good question. Shout out to the pepperoni, but we've already talked a lot about that. I think our stuffed beast is a seasonal holiday item. I wouldn't say it's underrated. It's super popular, but only available around the holidays. It's like a big stuffed roast. That's just been a centerpiece at many of my family dinners, and it's just goes over great. You know, super tasty. Those are probably the big ones. I really like the British bangers as well. So it's like the English breakfast sausage, one of the first products James created.
Yeah, that was the
I think
first
it's
one I
just-
showed.
That's the one right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Those are, and in
Those are-
terms of like the widely available products, I mean, at our butcher shop, we have a few other things. We've got steaks. Ribs are really, really tasty as well. Actually, we'll have to send you guys some of the ribs. I think we ship them online. Yeah.
Well,
Awesome.
that's great. Well, folks, now we're going to go to a section that is a new part of our podcast. And Mitchell, you are our first guest to answer these sort of rapid fire 5 questions, which we want to help give our audiences some just new ways to look at you and their own lives. So, are you ready?
I'm ready.
So, what's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Yeah, I think probably to not take the company public. Obviously, it was well-meaning advice at the time. I got that advice from a lot of people. It ended up working out for us. So yeah, that's probably the one I can think of.
Okay. What is the one thing you try to do each day that really makes an impactful difference in your life?
Yeah, for me the big thing is getting enough sleep and then spending some time outside each day. You know, at least 15 minutes, just kind of sitting outside, not looking at a phone or just kind of pondering. You know, sitting on a log or whatever.
Great. So nature. is
Nature,
important.
yeah, getting some nature and some fresh air. That's the big thing, because especially with all the Zoom calls and everything, you can look up and you've just been at your screen in your room for the whole day, and yeah, so that's really kind of helps center me, I guess.
And it helps you sleep, interestingly.
It does.
So,
yeah, so the two are connected.
If you can get some light. So, okay, so share something beautiful that happened to you in the last 24 hours.
Yeah. So yeah, I live near the beach here, and I was just out there. I think it was last night, and there was just the most amazing sunset. It was all kind of pink and golden, just looking out over the bay, and yeah, it was incredible. And just kind of made me realize how lucky I am to live here, on the West Coast.
What's the one thing you do to shake off stress?
Yeah, probably sit in the hot tub and drink a beer.
There you go. Nothing wrong with
Works
that.
every time.
And what's one good habit that you're really proud that you've cultivated and that you regularly do in your life?
Yeah, I think for me the biggest thing, it's not really a habit, was just becoming fully vegan, fully plant-based, whatever it was 5 years ago, when I kind of met James and started getting more involved. I've just had more energy, feel better. So for me, that was key. I'd obviously been a vegetarian before, but going fully plant-based, I just haven't looked back.
Yay. Well, thank you so much. And I have a question, actually, just going off that. Having been vegetarian for so long, did you eat a lot of dairy during your life before? And so the change from vegetarian for vegan was big?
A medium amount, like, drank milk. I loved cheese and crackers as a kid. So that was tough. But then I kind of took another look at what was out there, and I realized that the alternatives are so good now. Like, you're not really missing anything. Like, there's so many good plant-based cheeses out there in terms of like the artisan stuff, but also even just some of the mainstream stuff is really tasty. And like, even so, like, my wife doesn't like dairy-based cheese, and has never liked it, but loves plant-based cheese, which is funny. And she's not vegan or anything, but she really loves plant-based cheese. So yeah.
We love your wife. She let you hawk your wedding ring, and she loves your cheese. So that's great. Well, listen, thank you so much for being on the podcast, Mitchell. We wish you the best of luck with all your products. We're fans, Dotsie and I.
Yeah.
And so we're rooting for you.
We're behind you. Awesome.
Thanks so much for having me. It was great.
Hey, folks. Okay. Back by very popular demand is our plant-powered plate fridge magnet, which you are going to receive for free if you leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast on. So here are the details. Just write your quick review. Does not need to be long, does not need to be a whole story. Just be honest and speak from the heart. Then take a quick screenshot of the review you wrote and email it to us at podcast@switchforgood.org. That's podcast@switchforgood.org. And include your mailing address so we can send you a power plate. We are doing this because the more reviews we garner, the higher we go in search results, which means more folks will learn about our podcast. So the power is in your hands. Leave us a review and zoom, zoom, your power plate arrives at your doorstep.
So thank you so much for tuning in today. If we helped you in any way, then click the subscribe button and let's keep hanging out together. We have so much more to share with you.
And if you need more information on actually making the switch for good, please visit us at switchforgood.org for loads of info. And you can subscribe to our mailing list where you will receive all sorts of super cool gifts, discount codes to our very fave dairy-free products, and a lifetime of powerful health tips.
So join us on the journey to switch for good. This is the future.